What a privilege it is to be joined by our friend from across the pond, Mr. Neil Reynolds from Sky Sports. Neil, thank you for joining us. It was recently announced that the Vikings will be heading back to London in 2024 for another game at Tottenham Hotspur, the second time in 3 years. Date and opponent still TBD, but from your perspective, what is the energy level like, understanding that the Vikings will be returning to London this upcoming fall?
Well, I think that's a good word to use, energy, because whenever I think of the Vikings in London, I think of the stands filled with purple and the energy that the fans bring. Whether that was Wembley or Twickenham or now Tottenham, the Vikings have a unique record in London. Perfect 3-0 in 3 different stadiums. So yeah, I love the way. I always remember 2013 hosting a big event on Regent Street, and the Vikings fans just took over that center of London on that Saturday. It was brilliant. It was the same. I remember doing an event outside Twickenham as the buses rolled in. The buses would go through the crowd, purple everywhere. And then, of course, who couldn't forget the double doink game against the Saints? It was just the most thrilling game. And I remember saying afterwards, we were on air on Sky, and we said that there were people that probably experienced American football at Tottenham for the first time that day. One thing I kind of warned them, it's not always this exciting, but the Vikings would have made great fans of the NFL that day because it was a fantastic game. So yeah, I am very excited to see them back.
Yeah, well, that double doink was, I guess it was a revelation for the entire 22 season. So if there were, UK fans watching that 2022 Viking season, every game felt like that.
Yeah, we did a thing on Sky Sports towards the end of the year, like where we kind of polled the most amazing endings to the game of that season, and like 90% of them were Vikings games. I mean, it was everything. It was we had the comeback against Indianapolis that year. The field goal on Christmas Eve to win the game. There was all sorts going on that year. So yeah, they're always entertaining. But as I've got a few friends on the team as well, and they tell me they don't always want it to be that entertaining.
No, you want to be able to win games convincingly, and that's the goal for 2024 with this KOC-led regime. But understanding that this is a Vikings fan base that travels well, how have you seen the UK fandom for the Vikings grow since 2013?
It's been growing, like you said, since the team came, because I think the team always makes a real effort. So, it's grown year on year. The very, very first NFL UK live tour I did of the United Kingdom was in 2013 with Harrison Smith, who, God bless him, is still going strong. Love that. Love to see that. John Sullivan and Kyle Rudolph. And we toured the country, spreading the word about the NFL, spreading the word about the Vikings. We had players come over last year as well. So the team does a great job of kind of pushing itself, and it's a very sellable product. It's a very entertaining team. I love what the team's done, and it has paid dividends.
That's awesome. Just understanding the future growth of international games. Like, what do you see in the foreseeable future? Like maybe even the Super Bowl in the UK? Like, what are some of your thoughts when it comes to the future of these UK games?
So I think one thing I've always been a big advocate for a franchise. Let's have a London franchise. Let's see if we can support a London franchise year in and year out. But the more I kind of speak to teams, I had a good couple of sit-down interviews with Commissioner Roger Goodell around the London and Germany games last year. I think we're going to see a kind of Formula One version of the NFL, where you're going to see games in London, then we're going to be in Munich, then we'll be in Madrid in Spain, then we'll be in Sao Paulo in Brazil, we'll be in Mexico, we'll be a game in Paris in France, there'll be a game in Dublin in Ireland. So, I see the UK always being at the forefront of that because that's where it started. That was the driving force. We'll have 3 regular season games again in 2024. I don't think we'll drop down below 3 for quite a foreseeable future. I think the Super Bowl is the most American of all institutions. I actually don't think we should touch the Super Bowl. I think it's more trouble than it's worth. But, we're going to have from 2025, we're going to have 8 international games per year at least. So, London's not going anywhere. London's going to be the driving force. But we are truly going to see the globalization of this sport. The commissioner said to me, this is the most significant growth period in the league's history. And, it's a really exciting to be a part of that.
That's awesome. Just being a part of what this 2024 Vikings team can look like is exciting. Also, the NFL draft is coming up. And here we have a draft party on night one where Vikings fans will, party in US Bank Stadium. And it's going to be just so much energy filled there. Across the pond, what is draft night like for you guys?
So yeah, there are kind of draft parties, and teams are doing more and more watch parties themselves. But I think the draft is still for the very, very top end hardcore fans.
Okay,
obviously we're bringing in new fans all the time, and there are different levels of fans. So the draft is the huge off-season event for the NFL. But I do think it's it's one that's still for the kind of more educated fan. But there are certainly watch parties, and I think they'll be watching with interest now. The Vikings got themselves another first-round draft pick, right? So we'll see what happens at the end of April, because I think that's fascinating when you look at what they've done and built the team this offseason, just around the corner.
Yeah, the level of, I wouldn't say anxiety, but the level of anticipation for Vikings fans just reached another level when the Vikings traded back into the first round with the Houston Texans, acquiring another first-round pick in the 2024 NFL Draft. Understanding that, what are your thoughts on KOC and Kwesi heading into year 3 leading this Vikings regime?
So I know that, I think about how much of a struggle it was last year when Kirk went down, and how many different quarterbacks, and it was still the top 10 offense, and the team still won 7 games. So there are so many parts you can point to and be really kind of excited. Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson, and you're going to give me Aaron Jones as well. Like, I think Aaron Jones at the back end of last year was one of the Green Bay Packers' best players. I thought he was as good as he'd been for a number of years. I love the addition of the 2 new pass rushers, Grenard from the Texans, Andrew Van Ginkel, I think is a play. We had quite a lot of Dolphins. Dolphins are pretty popular in the UK as well. They've got an exciting offense. So we showed a lot of their games on Sky this year. Van Ginkel makes plays all the time. It's just like somebody who just pops up and grabs your attention. So I love what they're building. And I do think there's probably one big move around the corner. I'd like to think that, but certainly it's, I think Coach O'Connell, I've met him a couple of times, interviewed him. It seems like players clearly love playing for him. A great creative mind. I haven't met Kwesi yet. I need to make sure that's on my list for training camp this summer, because I'm fascinated by what he's building. And I do think the Vikings are a very exciting team. Again, like last year, a lot of close games, just some of them went the other way as opposed to going the Vikings' way the year before. So they're right there.
It's just however the ball drops. I mean, every year is a new meaning, a new just type of theme for how the season can go. My last question for you, I know we talked about Vikings, what the overall grand scheme could look like, but for you, understanding that this is going to continue to grow, games in London, games overseas, these international games, what's your level of excitement understanding that?
So what I like most is the way the teams are really invested in the UK market now. So, the Vikings are coming back again, 4th time in London. That is no small feat. It takes a lot to bring a team over to play games in the UK. I know that atmosphere at US Bank Stadium. So that's, to suddenly be playing in London, we want to help create that atmosphere because, we appreciate the Vikings coming over. And I love what the other teams, and I'm talking to you about the Vikings, but as we look bigger picture, the Jags are doing so much in the UK. The Jets and the Bears have launched a girls flag football league. These teams aren't just rolling in to play a game and disappearing. That's the exciting part for me, is that there are opportunities to continue to grow the sport, and the league will drive a lot of that. But what also drives it is that competition between the teams that are now marketing themselves in the UK. Oh, that team's doing that. Well, let's try this. We'll do this. And So it's a really exciting time. I've covered the sport for a very, very long time. I was a fan from the mid 1980s, and we've never had it so good. I think the future's never been so bright. So yeah, we appreciate all the teams sending their players and their teams and their stars this way.
Awesome. Well, Neil, as you know, I'm a huge fan of your work, huge fan of what you do for what we ask of you. So looking forward to having you out here this upcoming summer at training camp. In the meantime, stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you, Gabe. Thanks for having me.